Hello and welcome to the DSR Daily. I'm David Rothkopf. I'm joined by Riley Fessler and Minna Stein, and we're going to give you a brief look at what's going on in the world today and, I don't know, maybe a few thoughts about what it all means. Minna Stein, why don't you start us off?
Congressional Republicans are increasingly anxious about lacking a plan to address the expiring Enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies, which could cause health insurance costs to spike for millions and worsen the ongoing government shutdown crisis.
Poor pumpkins. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to say poor pumpkins out loud. It's just what I was thinking. Go on.
Moderate and vulnerable GOP lawmakers are urging party leaders and President Trump to negotiate with Democrats and find a short-term solution, warning that doing nothing could hurt working-class voters and cost the GOP control of Congress. However, deep divisions within the party between conservatives opposed to extending Obamacare aid and moderates pushing for temporary relief have left Republicans without consensus as the November 1st deadline for open enrollment approaches.
Yeah, well, here's the hot flash. You don't need all the Republicans. You just need a bunch of Republicans plus all the Democrats. So, the smaller groups of Republicans that want to get this through could actually get this through. But the Republicans don't seem to want to solve this. They still seem to think that they can blame it on the Democrats. Nobody in the public is buying that. The media isn't buying it. And it's not going to work. As far as, being concerned about this, they should have been concerned about it when they passed the big, hideous bill in the spring, which contained all these cuts. The reality is they don't care. They want to provide tax cuts for billionaires, and they're perfectly willing to screw each and every one of us out here in the process. That's a message the Democrats have been delivering effectively, because it has something that many Republican messages do not have going for it. It's true. Riley?
President Trump arrived in Tokyo for a royal welcome, meeting Japanese Emperor Naruhito as part of a 5-day Asia trip focused on securing a trade truce with China. Negotiators for the U.S. and China have already established a framework to pause tariffs and rare earth export controls, leading Trump to express confidence in an eventual deal with President Xi Jinping. During his visit to Japan, Trump had already secured a $550 billion investment pledge and will hold key talks on trade and security with Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi. The president will travel to South Korea on Wednesday before his highly anticipated meeting with the Chinese president on Thursday.
Yeah, right, which is taking place as part of a larger summit. As far as this trade framework goes, it's actually not a framework to eliminate tariffs. It's a framework to eliminate further increases in tariffs. It seems very unlikely that the Chinese are going to give up some of their key leverage points, because they're key leverage points and they need them, particularly if the United States is going to be mercurial, as it has been on trade policy. Canada trade policy, where the Canadians made the terrible mistake of actually running a true video of Ronald Reagan talking about how he didn't like tariffs, and it set off Trump, and all of a sudden the Canadians have increased tariffs. That, by the way, is another story, because Trump's premise that he is allowed to increase tariffs unilaterally without the Congress is based on a law that says he does so under certain emergency conditions. It's hard to imagine how a court is going to acknowledge that responding petulantly to a Canadian TV ad is actually the kind of emergency conditions that were envisioned by the law. As far as the meeting with the Chinese go, Trump understands very clearly that the Chinese aren't playing around. They're not playing the game of everybody else. The Japanese are saying, hey, meet with the emperor. Not that that has any meaning beyond the symbolic, but they know it will appeal to Trump's ego. The Japanese said, hey, we'll give you $550 billion in purchases. That's something they learned from the Chinese, who last time around did the same thing. They make a promise, Trump gets a headline, and then they don't follow through with the promise. Why? Because it's not a legally binding promise. Turning down the heat with China, turning down the heat on international trade is a good thing. And so if we can make some progress in that direction this week, that'll be a good thing. And we'll watch it closely right here and on all of our other podcasts. Riley?
The United States has launched...
And by Riley, of course, I meant Minna. Okay, it's Monday. Jeez.
I wasn't going to correct you. I know it's Monday.
Yeah, and you know you're Minna. Right, exactly. Okay.
Or I was having an existential crisis.
Yeah, that would
But
be
I'll
a
never
rough.
tell.
That would be a rough one for you. Anyway.
The United States has launched a major military buildup near Venezuela, deploying the aircraft carrier USS Gerald R. Ford, warships, marines, drones, and fighter jets as part of a campaign against what it calls transnational criminal organizations. The Trump administration claims the operations target drug traffickers and, quote, narco-terrorists linked to Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Though lawmakers like Senator Rand Paul have questioned the legality and lack of evidence behind the deadly strikes that have already killed over 40 people. With more than 10,000 U.S. personnel now in the Caribbean, officials suggest the campaign may soon expand from maritime to land operations in Venezuela and Colombia.
Look, Trump's got some agenda on this. I think part of it is, folks want to get rid of Maduro. I think part of it is Trump wants to appear strong against a weak adversary. I think I saw something like a seventh or a fifth of U.S. naval assets are currently in the Caribbean off the coast of Venezuela, which is, of course, ridiculous and has nothing to do with preparedness. Is there evidence that the people that they have murdered are actually narco-terrorists? No. Should there be? Yes. Are they resisting providing evidence? Yes. Is Venezuela a big jumping off point for drugs that get to the United States? No. Could any of the boats that they have sunk in the Caribbean actually make it to the United States? No. So, look, this is a charade. It's a president and a bunch of weaklings around him flexing their muscles, sort of kicking sand in the face of 90-pound weakling on the beach. But, of course, it's terrible for our relations in the hemisphere. Innocent people are going to get killed. It's not going to achieve any strategic value for the United States of America. And keep your eye on Venezuela's oil and what is in play there and what's the goal with regard to that. That's clearly got to play a role in all of this. Now let me try this again. Riley?
There we go.
Okay. See, I'm getting the hang of this.
President Trump is openly discussing a potential run for the presidency in 2028, telling reporters aboard Air Force One that he has the best numbers ever, despite constitutional limits. The 22nd Amendment limits...
Yeah, constitutional limits, right? Like the 22nd Amendment, what does it say, Riley?
It limits a person to being elected president only twice. But when asked about fighting the issue in court, Trump claimed he hadn't really thought about it. Allies like former advisor Steve Bannon are actively pushing the idea, claiming there is a plan to bypass the 22nd Amendment to ensure a third term. While Trump listed Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio as great potential candidates, he ruled out any possibility of running for the vice presidency himself.
Yeah, the 22nd Amendment's really clear. He can't run again. He's also old. He was on the plane flying to Japan last night, and he was talking about his MRI and how he got the best MRI results of anybody, and nobody's ever seen anybody get MRI results like that, except they wouldn't have given him an MRI unless there was an underlying problem there. And the guy's, going to be 80 on his next birthday, and he's not in great shape, and he's got fat ankles and all this other stuff. And so, it doesn't look like he actually is going to be physically able to run when it comes to that. That's to say nothing of the sort of bubbling up dementia and incoherence. That's, part of our president's charm. But having said all of that, I don't believe that this is the purpose. I believe the purpose is that Donald Trump is a lame duck president. And as soon as the world realizes he's a lame duck president, it starts searching for a successor and his power decreases. He doesn't want his power to decrease. MAGA world doesn't want his power to decrease. And so they're perfectly happy to play along with this charade. But it's a charade. Donald Trump is not going to run for a third term. Is Donald Trump capable of doing all sorts of crazy shit? Yes, he is capable of doing all sorts of crazy shit. I watched this movie. What is it called? House Full of Dynamite, the movie that's on Netflix this week. I watched it twice, it's the story of how one lone ICBM launched at the United States could potentially trigger a nuclear war and how that would work. Here's the reality. The President of the United States, if he decides to launch a nuclear war, all he has to do is say launch a nuclear war. 4 minutes later, the missiles go up. There is nothing to stop him from doing that. So there are all sorts of crazy things Donald Trump could do that we should worry about. I would put running for office again lower on the list. Now, might he cheat in the 2026 and 2028 elections? Oh, yeah. Might MAGA go on cheating? Might we be less of a democracy? Oh, yeah, I'm worried about that too. But Trump being president indefinitely in his condition seems unlikely to me. But I know some of you don't agree. Please feel free to share your comments with us. All the usual ways people share comments. Minna.
Hurricane Melissa, a slow-moving and rapidly intensifying storm, is approaching Jamaica as a potential Category 5 hurricane, bringing catastrophic flooding, destructive winds, and life-threatening landslides. Authorities have issued hurricane warnings for Jamaica and parts of Cuba and Haiti, with officials urging residents to seek shelter and prepare for extreme rainfall of up to 40 inches and storm surges reaching 13 feet. Melissa's slow pace and the region's mountainous terrain are expected to worsen flooding impacts, making it one of the most dangerous hurricanes ever to strike Jamaica.
Yeah, it's a dangerous hurricane. First of all, let's put this into some context. I think 3 of the 5 storms that have struck so far this year have become Category 5 storms. That's very unusual, and that says something about climate change. I also think that Hurricane Melissa was 2 days ago not a hurricane, and it went from tropical storm to Category 5 hurricane at record speed. That's not usual. That's climate crisis also. The administration denies that there is a climate crisis. This is further proof of it on a regular basis. Not that one event could be, proof of a trend, but we also have the other events in the trend that support this. This could be a disaster for those countries. It is unlikely the United States will do anything like the $40 billion it just sent to Argentina to help sway the election in the direction of Argentina's President Milei, which, by the way, yesterday in Argentina, it worked. He won a legislative election, despite the fact that many of his policies are hurting the people of Argentina deeply, and he did because of the intervention of the president. He involves himself. He's not America first all the time. He's America first when it suits him and not when it doesn't. But these countries are full of brown and black people, and that means that he is very unlikely to help them. In the past, disasters in these countries have led to exodus via boat to the United States. Obviously, given the policies of this administration towards boats in the Caribbean and towards immigrants, that seems less likely, or alternatively, it seems likely to produce a crisis. We'll keep an eye on that too. For the moment, our thoughts are with the people of Jamaica and Haiti and the region who could suffer mightily as a result of this. Of course, we'll watch all these things as the week comes. And we'll be here with the Daily and with all of our other podcasts. And we appreciate all of your support. Norm Ornstein, Riley sent a little note over the weekend showing that Words Matter was one of the top 10 podcasts in the country on politics over the weekend, and which was heartening and helped make the weekend even better. We like to see that. We see that on multiple podcasts of ours frequently, and that's because of you folks. So thanks, everybody. And if you like what we're doing, go to the DSRnetwork.com, click on membership, support us for a few bucks a month. If you're watching on YouTube or you're watching someplace else, like us, subscribe to us, follow us. We promise we'll make a big effort to make it worth your while. Until then, bye-bye.